Palace separated by mountains, the scene revolves around celebrating the goddess's encounter, truly blowing to Hangzhou Bay. This car is about 300 kg heavier than the 5-seat Curie Mail. 2T engine, 70-degree large battery. Is the Heiaji 500,000 yuan geek really worth it or not? Such an expensive car, do you believe this price is steal? Always heard that painting iron parts silver is to pretend aluminum, then painting aluminum black looks like iron again. What's the purpose? Hi family, hello. The official website's global ultra-luxury SUV new flagship and many car review programs Hangzhou Bay Curie Nanji Geek 9's appearance and configuration. I believe everyone has seen enough, so how strong is the car's crash beam? Is the suspension good or not? In this chassis disassembly program, let's talk less and show more. Look at the undercarriage to see if such an expensive geek's face and inside are enough to fight. Okay, less talk. Directly look at the 4 doors and 2 covers. Each piece uses aluminum material. One piece is iron part skin material. Let's quickly let the magnet give the answer. The front 3 covers are aluminum alloy. The front seat board is steel. The front door is also aluminum alloy. The rear door is still aluminum alloy. The rear seat board is steel. The upper part of the tailgate is steel. The lower part should be composite material of aluminum alloy and plastic. Undoubtedly, the body skin chooses a steel-aluminum mix. 4 doors and 1.5 covers use aluminum, the rest use steel. This plan naturally balances cooling, reconstruction costs, selling price, maintenance difficulty, and other pros and cons. In addition, the rear uses a luxury heaven and earth door design, and the material selection must fully consider functional design requirements. So objectively speaking, the coverage of the Geek 9's skin parts is quite good. But even so, this 70-degree battery Ultra version's curb weight still reaches 30-45 kg. Speaking of this, the curb weight of large SUVs with range-extended hybrid powertrains is basically 2.5 tons as a baseline. I also list some for your reference. One more thing compared to the selection of skin materials, the weight of battery capacity, powertrain and white body and suspension systems chlorine content have a greater impact. Here are some similar-sized gasoline car weights for reference, such as the 2024 5-seat Curie Nan and the 2025 standard wheelbase Navigator, both around 2.7 tons. The 2025 Range Rover is about 2.6 tons. So frankly, Geek 9's is really quite heavy. Okay, next, let's directly dismantle the bumper and discuss the main topic. Let's see if the front and rear protection of the Geek 9's is adequate or not. Unscrewing and removing the clips, removing the front and rear bumpers in order, you can clearly see the Geek 9's front gives a standard main and auxiliary defense structure, the shape overall square, bending backward on both sides. However, families who often dismantle geek cars know that the crash beam material can't be judged just by color. That's right, the gray main beam and black auxiliary beam only look like steel, but actually both use aluminum, which is lighter, has better energy absorption and extensibility, and also has corrosion and rust resistance. As for why the main beam does not appear in the metallic silver original color, it should be related to the manufacturing process of first assembling the white body then painting, which does not affect the actual function. The black aluminum alloy auxiliary beam is probably separately installed after painting. A little more to say, painting aluminum also adds extra protective coating, especially for use in high humidity and high salt areas. Durability is more reassuring. Looking at this, coastal factories really think a lot about car manufacturing. Functionally, actual measurements show the front main and auxiliary beams' widths are about 1.62 meters and 1.53 meters respectively, with protection width ratios clearly reaching about 80% and 75%. That's right, the auxiliary crash beam is shorter than the main beam, and its ends are bent to cope with small-angle oblique collisions. Although there is a section of welded aluminum beam reinforcement at the collision positions, the main frame's one side is visibly longer than the auxiliary frame's side, somewhat eccentric. Fortunately, extra wedge-shaped offset blocks are seen installed at the rear ends of both main beam sides. Also, when dealing with strong small-angle collisions, this structure can better guide collision forces outside the weight, cooperating with the inherited DU wheel life-saving technology to minimize intrusion risk into the passenger cabin. In addition, the main load-bearing energy absorption boxes are embedded into the car body weight and auxiliary frame first, then fixed by side bolts. The advantage of this is more accurate collision force transmission path and better gradation collapse energy absorption effect by utilizing different materials and strengths from crash beam to car body weight. We have also seen this on other Geek models. Speaking of body structure, the Geek 9S's steel-aluminum hybrid body uses a lot of pressed pillar aluminum, mostly reflected in the rear CD pillars and lower body. The benefit is lighter weight with the same structure and fewer parts. Of course, the specs are better. It is said high-strength steel and aluminum alloy proportion can reach 91%. The body torsional stiffness is just over 40,000 Nm/deg. Although lower than the flagship S8 version of Zunjai and NIO ET9's 50,000 plus, it is higher than TENG Shi N9 and Wenji M9. Ladao L90 is indeed higher. By the way, opening the hood to look first, don't be fooled by the large front shape of the Geek 9S, but because the engine compartment needs to accommodate a 2T engine, air conditioning system, drive motor, actively opening and closing radiator, and complex oil pipe and control units, the overall layout is quite compact. It is said Geek 9S's power system can support engine direct drive and range extender modes and is also the world's first 900V hybrid architecture, focusing on on-demand execution that is both powerful and efficient. Other safety details we can look at more carefully. First, the auxiliary frame's top crossbeam at the clipper tower position is obviously reinforced. First, it can act as a structure to improve vehicle torsional rigidity and handling, somewhat like a performance car's strut bar design. Second, it also serves as a mounting bracket for coolant reservoir and partial wiring harness. Additionally, the front corner of the engine compartment also has a separately installed short steel beam for small-angle collision protection. Moving further to the rear, because this Ultra version Geek 9S is equipped with an electric tow hook. To meet towing strength and necessary crash beam function, this thick and sturdy but width-limited black steel beam must be used. Actual measured length is about 1.26 meters, protection width ratio only over 60%, but the cross-section thickness reaches 6. Of course, this design is a widely adopted mature scheme. We have seen similar parts on the Li Auto i6 just dismantled. But even so, Geek 9S still designs the rear steel beam with an energy absorption box similar to the front structure for better collapse protection and easier individual replacement, worthy of praise. In 2 sentences, the front and rear protection design and material choice are quite proper with some surprising details. Under the vast S architecture, do you think Geek 9X's front and rear protection is flagship level, or did you find any areas needing improvement? Feel free to share in the comments. In the program, we'll continue with the main event, chassis and suspension analysis. Raising the Geek 9X high, you can see the large chassis actually only has 2 large fiber protective plates attached in the front powertrain underbody and the mid-to-rear fuel tank area. The rest, from the front subframe rear through the motor surrounding area, is all metal sections exposed, probably considering motor heat dissipation and exhaust heat issues. However, the front subframe area actually has an additional steel guard plate installed to protect the internal steering motor assembly, and this 70° 6C30L large battery also uses composite plastic lower guard plates. Not the kind of steel plate sprayed with PVC coating. Although it also has sufficient anti-corrosion and moisture resistance, the daily driving noise reduction effect may be slightly inferior. Fortunately, the chassis overall flatness is acceptable and no obvious external pipeline is seen. Also at the rear of the front subframe, extra short steel beams are installed as chassis low points, reducing battery dragging and scratching risk. The entire exhaust system not only has high positioning and weight forcing the rear subframe to avoid it fully, but the routing around the Gerluma, likely a brand or term, is also very carefully designed, including targeted protection around the battery's front coolant pipes close to the fuel tank area near the muffler at the rear and around the battery. In addition, although Geek 9S is equipped with electric running boards, it specially leaves lifting jack support points for easy daily maintenance, which is also commendable. Quickly removing the front and rear large guard plates, the real Geek 9S chassis is revealed even without code. Starting with materials, except the front subframe uses steel sections, the rest are bright yellow and white aluminum alloy parts. Compared to steel aluminum materials, not only are they visually appealing and better rust-proof, but similar structure and strength weigh less. Looking at the layout from front to back, engine, front motor, battery, fuel tank, and rear motor. The layout also emphasizes a packed design. Even the air spring tank for the 4 wheels can only fit in the gap between the rear radiation frame and exhaust muffler. Only the front of the battery pack leaves a little space to avoid the hot exhaust front section and 3-way catalytic converter. One more thing, the resin fuel tank volume and sound insulation design benefit from this. Despite many chassis components, the rear row inside still has a flat floor. Looking closely, although the front radiation frame uses the common full-box Japanese character-shaped structure made of high-strength stamped steel plates welded together. You can see the front powertrain mount bushes are integrated inside the subframe. The benefit of this design is it meets functional requirements while reducing vertical space occupation. Comparatively, the rear uses an integrated power-assisted full-frame subframe, a high-end standard, with strong structure and light weight. Also at the rear motor position, a black cover wrapped with Velcro is seen to isolate motor vibration and high-frequency noise. Continuing to look at the suspension structure, according to official information, Geek 9S uses double wishbone independent suspension at the front and integrated multi-link full aluminum suspension at the rear. But experienced drivers know it is actually front double wishbone and rear HB form, all made of genuine aluminum alloy. The reason big SUVs often use double wishbones at the front is mainly because this structure has large lateral rigidity and excellent anti-roll performance. At the same time, it balances handling and comfort needs well. However, Geek 9S does not further couple the upper and lower control arms by multi-ball joints on the traditional structure, so upper limit might be relatively limited. Comparatively, the rear protagonist must be this trapezoid large structure with strong H-shaped lower control arm. It not only supports the air springs but also bears lateral forces, longitudinal forces and bending moments during cornering, absolutely a versatile lower control arm. The remaining parts connect to the subframe with only one upper arm and one front trailing link. So the biggest advantage of this suspension structure is it saves space compared to traditional multilink while also balancing dynamic handling and ride comfort well. The only difficulty might be it demands high tuning skills. Of course, apart from structure, springs, dampers, and related electronic control systems also play especially important chassis roles. In fact, Geek 9S's standard yellow inspection scheme is this top-tier combination of B-type double air springs plus dual-valve CCD electromagnetic dampers. From the clear markings on the yellow body, it shows cooperation with Konghui technology. Compared to ordinary open air springs, B-type has faster lift speed and smaller space occupation. Also, it has lower noise advantages. According to usage needs, it is said to achieve a maximum 110 formation adjustment range. As for why Geek's dampers are called CCD instead of the usual CDC, it's just a letter order difference. The principle is the same, controlling electromagnetic valve on-off to change internal flow path and thus adjust damper stiffness. However, the dual valve can achieve independent control of compression and rebound, performing better. Combined with actual road tests, although Geek 9S is over 5 meters long and weighs over 3 tons, its overall dynamic performance is still quite agile and nimble. Only when the center of gravity shifts rapidly, tail sliding is inevitable. In summary, a top passing speed of 74.1 km/h is quite good. Having seen the body and verified the undercarriage, lastly let's look at Geek 9S's tires and brake configuration, performance and appearance discussed here. First, our Geek 9S Ultra version is equipped with 22-inch mirror-forged wheels and front 6-piston orange calipers as optional items. To get thinner tire walls and larger fillings, wanting both looks and performance, you need to spend an extra 40,000 yuan. The free option is only 22-inch star-forged wheels with 4-piston calipers. For tires, all four are 285/45 R22 specs from Michelin PS5 series, emphasizing handling and strong performance. The brake system uses front-fixed 6-piston calipers with drilled ventilated discs, and rear-floating single-piston calipers with ventilated discs. Excellent hardware configuration is fully verified in our performance tests, fastest acceleration to 100 km/h in 4 seconds. 10 consecutive full-force 100 km/h brakes reached a shortest braking distance of only 32.348 meters, and the average of 10 times was only 34.81 meters, quite formidable. Okay, that's all for this Geek 9X chassis disassembly program. The entire vehicle chassis suspension layout, design and material usage I think are quite up to the mark for its flagship status, including front and rear protection details. So for 500,000 yuan, would you consider Geek? And who would you compare it with? Looking forward to your insights in the comments. We'll see you in the next program.